This is our 11:30 class on the GPC Servers Training School on July 17, 1953. Continuing our basic pattern of magic, we have touched lightly upon the factors of deliverance. We remember we dealt with the matter of the firstborn, for instance. And while that can stand some expansion, there's a recognition of the basic factors, the crossing of the Red Sea, a realization that each one must cross the Red Sea individually, that you have your own Red Sea to cross if you have not done so. And the only way out of Egypt is across the Red Sea. And here again we have emphasis upon the basic practicality of the divine plan in relationship to man. The Red Sea correlating with the physical aspect of being. We cannot ignore the physical and be spiritual. Those who say the body doesn't make any difference, we're only interested in the spiritual, and segregate the body from the spiritual, don't know what they're talking about. The body is supposed to be just as spiritual as anything else. The physical body. And we recognize something of the principle with respect to Mount Sinai, realizing the ascension into the mount. We didn't examine that very closely, perhaps, but we have touched upon it. There are a number of things that perhaps we will get back to, but I believe at this particular time we can wisely consider some of the factors with respect to the tabernacle itself. We remember that there were 13 tribes of the children of Israel, and that the Levites were those who were charged with the responsibility of the priesthood. And in the encampment of the children of Israel, there was the outer encampment, divided into that isn't correct, is it? Divided into 4 parts. And in the middle, there was the encampment of the Levites. We remember that there were 3 tribes in each of these 4 to take care of the 12 tribes in the main encampment, and then the Levites were encamped in the middle, and in the middle of the encampment of the Levites there was the tabernacle. So the account for the 13 tribes, the 12th or the 13th being the priesthood, carrying out the pattern as the master, his body being the 13th. He had 12 disciples, and so there were 12 tribes. Jacob had 12 sons, but there was no tribe of Joseph. Joseph had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and there was 2 tribes who were fathered by these 2 men. So Joseph fathered 2 tribes, and the other 11 brothers each fathered 1 tribe. And we must remember always that there were 13 tribes of the children of Israel. There were 12 disciples, and the master himself made 13. We were talking about correlating points in our meditation last evening. That is another factor which comes to the front when we begin to see how the same principles were revealed in both the Old and the New Testaments. And in this encampment of the children of Israel, we recognize that each tribe was composed of both male and female. So the positive and negative aspects are seen in the body of the encampment itself. But the positive and negative, or male and female aspects, manifest in many different ways. We have recognized that this particular pattern extends from the solar system to the atom and is in control properly in the divine design with all things between these two extremes. So let us note, with respect to the tabernacle itself, what the pattern is. There was the outer court of the tabernacle, a sort of goatskin fence, shall we say, that extended out in front of the entrance, and anyone who was properly clean, not degenerated into a pattern of just physical cleanliness, etc., but anyone who was classified as clean and was a member of the encampment in the right sense could go into the outer court under certain conditions or at certain times. It was more or less open to all. And then there was the next point with respect to the holy place. It was one of the two rooms of the tabernacle itself. And the holy place was forbidden territory to the people, generally speaking, but any of the priests who were properly officiating could enter the holy place. But at one end of the tabernacle there was a smaller room cut off by hangings, which was classified as the Holy of Holies. So we see here the three again. The outer court, correlating with the well, perhaps I should approach this a little different way to make it clear. Remember now, the encampment itself, composed of the people, the physical body, the outer court, and then the holy place, and then the Holy of Holies. With the Holy of Holies we have the fourth place, which was the place of the ark. And the Ark of the Covenant provided the means by which the evidence of the presence of the one who dwells could be made manifest. So, the encampment itself represented the physical body, male or female, your physical body. And then there was the encampment of the priesthood, which correlates with that. We may consider that point a little more later, but next we come, as far as the tabernacle is concerned, to the outer court, which symbolizes your outer or conscious mind. Your conscious mind. And then the holy place, symbolizing what we call your spiritual expression plane, or the third plane of being. But then within the tabernacle, inside of all of this, is the Holy of Holies. And the only entrance to the holy place was through, or the Holy of Holies, was through the holy place. No entrance into the Holy of Holies except through the holy place. Now the holy place is the place of spiritual things, of spiritual realization, of spiritual understanding, of spiritual correlation with deity. But the Holy of Holies is the place of deity. and only the high priest was authorized to enter the Holy of Holies. And it was in the Holy of Holies that we found or find the Ark of the Covenant, representing the reality of the presence of the one who dwells. So your own Lord or your own individual God being is indicated there, or we can carry the pattern out to a group or to the whole body of mankind. When we say mankind, we do not think of just one person. We think of all men and women upon the face of the earth. When we say God, we should not think of just one being. We should think of all God beings. Just as mankind indicates many beings, the word God signifies many beings. If we are thinking of focalization in deity, we might conceivably say the Lord God, or our Lord, or the Lord of Lords, and recognize the reality of our King. But the word God, used alone, never signifies one being any more than the word mankind, used, would signify just one being. So the reality of mankind as a whole can be seen in relationship to this design. We have the 12 tribes of the children of Israel in the world today. We have recognized that in our previous meditations. The 12 segments of mankind. And we need to have some realization of the reality of those 12 segments. And recognize that there is also the 13th, which is the focalization of the priesthood. So, every man, woman, and child upon the face of the earth, without regard to color or creed or belief or nationality, is contained in one of these 13. We say one of the 12, yes. One of the 12 segments. There are 12 segments. The 13th comes out of the 12. The 13th emerges out of the 12, as the body of Jesus emerged out of the body of mankind, so that he was born on earth. We have the same principle. And the priesthood, those men and women who belong truly to the priesthood, emerge out of the 12 tribes to make the 13th. And there's the point of crossing over from the field of being served to the field of true serving. We might correlate that with the pattern of restoration or resurrection from the state of being a sheep to the state of being a member of the body of the shepherd. It applies in so many ways. And then, when we see the body of mankind, the 12 segments, we also must recognize that out of the 12 emerge, without respect to race or color or anything of that sort, emerge the members of the 13th. If you are not emerging from the 12 to share the responsibilities of the 13th, you don't have any business here, really. Why are you here? Why are you here? To take part in the resurrection, to share the resurrection, so that you can move out of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. What does Israel mean? God's chosen ones, or the chosen ones of God. And so, today on the face of the earth, as far as God is concerned, in the broad sense, He chooses all human beings. He chooses all human beings. But those human beings have to choose to be chosen, if they are to be truly chosen. In the overall sense, God chooses all, every one, without an exception. But God's choosing a person does not make that person be something or other. The individual himself must choose to be chosen. He must volunteer. And then the fact that God has chosen him already begins to have some meaning. And so, all people come under the classification, the children of Israel. In our own thinking, our own attitudes, we must never assume that the children of Israel means, well, for instance, the Jews. The Jews were made up, as we have seen, of 2.5 tribes of the children of Israel, plus the Oriental influence. For instance, at the time of the Babylonian captivity, there was an intermingling of blood, and so on. And those who come to us today as Jews are not Jews. As it's put in the book of magic, the book of Revelation, those who say they are Jews and are not. There aren't any Jews on the face of the earth today, in actual fact. There isn't a Jew alive today, in the sense that the idea is usually expressed, because a Jew was truly, accurately, or in the sense of exact principle, one of the sons of Judah. When Judah was one of the 12 tribes, one of the 13 tribes, if you want to put it that way, but one of the 12 in the outer encampment. Just one of the tribes of the children of Israel. But at the time of the separation of Jerusalem and Samaria, the break in the tribes, there were 9.5 tribes went with Samaria, and 2.5 tribes went with Jerusalem, and those 2.5 tribes became all mixed up. Children of Benjamin and so on. Benjamites were included. Well then, that mixture of blood produced a situation where there wasn't any true Jew left. But there were further mixtures that took place in spite of what the so-called Jews like to think or imagine. They're not just the pure strain of the sons of Judah. They are a mixture. And there's a mixture of some Oriental blood during patterns of captivity and so on, which became involved. Well then, we must never think of the Jews as being excluded from the children of Israel, but we must never think of those who call themselves Jews as being the children of Israel. They're no more children of Israel than you are, or you're just as much one of the members of the children of Israel as any so-called Jew on the face of the earth. And we need to realize that, to know it, so that you do not ever segregate yourself from the reality of classification as one of the chosen ones of God. The attempt that has been made to segregate God's chosen people into just one mixed up tribe that is called the Jews is a complete fallacy. There's no truth in it. So we have no quarrel with the Jews, but we refuse to acknowledge that those who call themselves Jews are pure strain of the children of Judah, and only those who are the sons of Judah can properly call themselves Jews. So we have the fact that today there are the children of Israel, just as much as at any time in any past cycle, the children of Israel. And you are one of them, the 12 segments of mankind, out of which emerge the 13th tribe, the tribe of the priesthood. And your presence here indicates that you are interested in being numbered as one in the tribe of the priesthood. You have your background pattern relationship, however, with the 12 segments, or at least one of them. Actually, you do not find the 12 distinct divisions. You find factors where one of the 12 segments carries a dominant pattern in relationship to the individual. We're all mixtures, shall we say. We all have something of the 12 segments within ourselves individually, and yet one is dominant. So, mankind is pictured here. Mankind as a whole, including every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth, without a single exception. We all belong actually, as far as God is concerned, to the 12 tribes. And we may all be properly classified as the children of Israel, God's chosen ones, or the children of God's chosen ones, if you want to put it that way. Next we note then that as there is the body of mankind, the body of mankind has meaning only in relationship to the body of God. And remember, God is not one being any more than mankind is just one being, although the whole of mankind constitutes one body with many members. And so God constitutes one body. There's just one God. In the days of the children of Israel, when they said, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God," they were right. We just have one God, not many gods. We have one God. But God is not just one being. There is only one God. But this one body of God contains many God beings, just as the one body of mankind contains many men and women. And mankind, was created, brought forth on earth in the image and likeness of God, one body with many members. So the body of mankind cannot have true meaning without a true relationship with the body of God. And here we see the revelation of the principles by which that relationship is established, the physical body as such. Then, next, the mind. We have noted in our patterns of meditation the importance of intelligence, the meaningfulness that appears by reason of intelligence. And without intelligence, there is no meaningfulness as far as the individual is concerned. So the conscious mind. And then the reality of the holy place. The holy place is a place where all true members of the priesthood may serve in their appointed season, representing the people to God and representing God to the people. Now there's the dual function of those who are true members of the priesthood after the order of Melchizedek. And early in the beginning of this class, you came to realize that we are functioning on the basis of the priesthood after the order of Melchizedek. So, we have the realization that the priesthood serves in a dual capacity, representing the people to God and representing God to the people. Then, in the holy place, there is a direct contact. The people could come into the outer court, and any authorized member of the priesthood could be in the holy place. There we have the close association pattern. But only the high priest could go into the Holy of Holies, carrying the pattern to a point of focalization. We remember how, as we have moved forward in our considerations, you have more and more come to see the principle of focalization, and to realize that only on the basis of focalization can there be any true meaning. The people themselves, the body of the 12 tribes, is carried into a pattern of focalization in the priesthood. And the priesthood is carried into a pattern of focalization in the high priest, the supreme point. And the supreme point of this focalization meets the focalization of deity in the Holy of Holies. So, there is the contact in the direct sense with God. We have already studied something of the Shekinah pattern, but do not imagine you know all there is to know about it yet. We've only introduced it. And we recognize the reality of the presence of the one who dwells in the midst of the fire. Between the cherubim, you must recognize that there are a number of interesting factors here that we haven't studied yet. The cherubim, for instance. But here in the Holy of Holies, there is the high priest. And there also we have the pattern of association with deity, the high point of contact with the body of God on earth. So that the body of humanity is really a body for the body of God. As you put clothing on your physical body to give it an outer form of manifestation or appearance, you may say that the body of mankind is supposed to be the clothing for the body of God. If you look at a person, you say, I see that person. But do you? You may see that person's head, hands, possibly the feet. But you see the clothing the person wears. Actually, you're not seeing the person except perhaps the exposed head and the hands. That's all. The rest of it, all you see is the clothing. You may see some indication of the shape of the body by the way the clothing hangs or sets or whatever it does. But in any case, you're just seeing the clothing, not the body itself. So we begin to see that mankind is supposed to be the clothing for God's body on earth, so that God's body can be exposed to the view of man, not naked, but clothed. Now, the kind of clothing that mankind has been offering God down through these centuries has been unacceptable. If you were going to invite an important guest, a guest like, say, President Eisenhower, a very wonderful man, a very important man, to come and be a guest in your home, and the minute he came in, you said, well, now here I have some special clothing for you. And you dragged out some old filthy gunny sacks full of, well, shall we say a little manure and a few worms perhaps, and the old grain that's being eaten up, and a few things like that, something pretty dusty and filthy, and you insisted that he put on these old gunny sacks. Would you feel that he would be justified in turning around and walking out, going back somewhere else? I would think so. Well, now, the clothing that mankind has been offering God has been worse than that. Worse than filthy gunny sacks. Been putrid, rotten. Most of it stinks. Mankind is supposed to be the clothing for the body of God, so that God can come on earth to reveal himself, to express himself, to act, to do on earth. But we must provide the kingly robes for the king if he is to visit us. We are supposed to provide the clothing for the body of God. And here's the picture of that clothing. Mankind in the 12 segments, emerging through the patterns of focalization into the priesthood, and through the priesthood into the high priest, to provide the contact point. Now, we have people here in the 12 tribes, and also the 13th, but that emerges out of the 12, remember. Represents the heart principle, by the way. There are other things there, but representing the heart, the emotional pattern, not to make emotionalism, but the true perception through the heart, the feeling nature in relationship to love and the beauty, appreciation of the divine design. Other factors are included. That's not complete. But in any case, we have male and female in the body of mankind. When it emerges to the point of the representation, where we're considering the priesthood in the tabernacle, what do we find? The priesthood, as such, then represents the positive or male principle, and the tabernacle, as such, represents the negative or female principle. In the final analysis, we find that the high priest represents the male sex organ, and the Holy of Holies represents the female sex organ. Because sex, in its divine sense, in its true sense, is the holiest and most sacred thing there is in relationship to mankind on earth. And yet man has tended to make it something sordid, something evil. We find human beings who take the attitude that it's any function in sex, particularly if it's not for purposes of reproduction, is somehow vile, somehow sordid, somehow evil. And under the sordid patterns of the world's function, the filthy garments of the gunny sacks, it probably is a bit on the sordid side. That which carries the potentiality of the highest vibrational factors, the most delicate that can be known to human beings, has, under misuse, the capacity of being the worst. You take something here made out of steel, that chair, for instance, is supposed to be stable enough for you to sit down in it and hold it. I could pick it up, I could bang it around, I could drop it, and you wouldn't see any great difference in the nature of the chair. It wouldn't hurt it. It isn't very delicate. If we had a road grader out here or drove in a tractor, you might say, well, this isn't as delicate as the chair. It would smash the chair, yes, but it wouldn't hurt the tractor any. And so we can find things that are crude and that are not delicate. They do not have the capacity for the delicate aspects of life. But if I pick up a glass, for instance, and drop it on the floor, it breaks. Something more delicate. You've seen probably formations in glass that were very delicate. You'd hardly touch them. Fragile. We take the flour. I pick up a flour here and look at it. I crush it in my hand and then look at it again. It's delicate. It's smashed. It's spoiled. The petals are bruised. It's no longer a beautiful flower. It's a delicate thing. And the most delicate thing in life is sex. The thing that can be most easily bruised, most easily spoiled, most easily made sordid. But that doesn't change the fact that it is supposed to be the apex of beauty in the divine design. Delicate in relationship to the Holy of Holies, the most sacred thing there is. And when we consider the body in the absolute sense, we have to recognize that the male and the female, separate, do not complete a body. Actually, it's in order to have one human body, it takes a male and female body to make one human body. But these human bodies do not make a complete body. We have to have the aspects of deity. We have to have all of the factors. We carried it out in our meditation so that you could see that the whole, clear extending to the cosmos, is one body. And our relatedness to that whole is essential to our wholeness. So until we begin to have a pattern of relationship with the whole, on the basis of the principles by reason of which God created us, we cannot be whole. But we are not whole by ourselves at any point along the way. You as a person, you cannot consider yourself a complete being, a whole thing, all by yourself. No two people can be a whole thing. A man and a woman together, properly balanced, properly coordinated, cannot be considered to be a whole, because they need their neighbors, they need their other parts of the body of mankind. And the body of mankind, with all of its members, is not a whole without its relationship to the body of God. And so on. Up and down the line. You take your own body. We take out the liver. That's just one organ. Can't you do without it? How would you like somebody to cut your liver out? You could get along without it very nicely, couldn't you? You know from your study of anatomy that you remove the liver and the body dies. Just one organ. Your body is not whole without the liver and cannot live without the liver. That's why they called it the liver. Remember that with practically every ill condition that man suffers, the liver is involved. If someone's sick, the liver is involved in some way in relationship to the problems. So, you can't live without the liver. And you can take that two ways. You can't live without the liver. The organ that's called the liver, or the being that does the living. You need to be a liver. A liver in the body of mankind. How quickly the body of mankind would die without the cells, the human beings that are the livers. The cells in the liver of the body of mankind. We need to live. We need to live. And so, the wholeness. Where is the point of wholeness? Now, I have known people to imagine, well, if these things are true, well, then I must rush out and get a husband or a wife, or I must do this, I must do that. If I just had a husband, if I just had a wife, then I would be whole, everything would be all right. That's one of the worst delusions. How many are there that have husbands and wives that are whole? Not very many. Not very many. At least 90% of the marriages on the face of the earth are not divinely ordained. They're not married, except legally. I think I'm being generous when I say that there might be 10% of the marriages on earth divinely ordained, properly correlated. I think I'm being very generous. If God were to set things aright by some magic means, it means He would dissolve 90% of the marriages, just overnight like that. Reshuffle the works, put them together the way they ought to be. So, rushing out to get a husband or a wife isn't the way. Because even husband and wife together, in the proper balance of being, are still not whole without the rest. We need each other in the patterns of being, up and down the line. So, by getting a husband or getting a wife, you're not making any real step toward developing wholeness for yourself unless it's the right relationship. And you can function better alone than you can in the wrong relationship. So be careful. And when I talk about sex, don't jump to the conclusion that there is the necessity of some kind of immediate development of a pattern of sex in order to be spiritual. But I'm talking about basic principles which you have to begin to see. You have to begin to get the idea before you can accept and before you can let your consciousness expand so that you can understand the basic principles of being. And the high priest in the Holy of Holies represents union between male and female on earth as the highest form of worship before God in the revelation of the evidence of the presence of the one who dwells. The most sacred, the most holy of all those things which human beings can experience. But sex is not limited merely to the function of the sexual organs of the body. Everything that we do is sex. Let us remember that. We're functioning on the basis of sex here. I'm carrying the positive pattern of sex, and you're carrying the negative pattern of sex. Men and women all together here. If we did not have a sex pattern set up here, in this sense, your presence here wouldn't mean a thing. The positive expression of that which I offer to you, and your response to it. The law, the basic law, the one law, is the positive and the negative. Without it, there can be nothing. Every function of life is under that law in one way or another. And in the way in which I use the word sex, every function of life is included. All of our relationships, without any exception. It's all sex. So let's enlarge our vision. Stop thinking of sex merely as the physical, intimate relationship between a male and a female. Let's begin to realize that if I am carrying the positive expression to you here, if I am here as the high priest, shall we say, expressing to you, then you are functioning in the pattern of the female body, whether you're male or female is beside the point. And is there anything intimate in it? If there isn't, why are you here? Of course there's something intimate. Not in the ordinary concept of physical sex, no. We're not interested in that sort of thing. We're interested in something that is holy and pure and sacred and divine. But unless we can establish an intimate relationship spiritually, an intimate relationship mentally, on the basis of the sex principle, we have nothing. There are perversions of the sex principle. We recognize that. But I'm talking about the fact that you can't have friendship between two men, between two women, without the manifestation of the sex principle. But does that mean that they have some kind of intimate relationships necessarily? Not at all. Not at all. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the fact that you cannot have anything in manifestation without the reality of the sex principle. And if it is going to function, it must have a pattern of focalization. There must be the reality of the high priest. There must be the reality of the Holy of Holies. But can there be a Holy of Holies if there's not a holy place? Can there be? The individual who tries to have a Holy of Holies without having a holy place, will it work? No. Can you have a Holy of Holies without an Ark of the Covenant? No. Impossible. There must be the Ark of the Covenant. Or there's no Holy of Holies. The Ark of the Covenant. There must be the outer court. There must be the encampment. We cannot leave out one of these principles and have anything. We may have the appearance for a little while, but it disintegrates. It's soon gone. It's lost. We cannot have a holy place without a mind, an outer court, that is related to the holy place, that connects up with it, that is true to it. And we must have a relationship between the outer court, the mind, and the body. And the body has its own direct relationships to the holy place then, too, as well as through the mind. There's also through the heart. And we begin to realize that the whole thing is integrated, and that every human being contains all of these things. Do you think it's only as we have a husband and wife pattern, for instance, that we have this? No. Take any one of you, male or female, I do not care. And there we find what? We find the male and the female in the one body. Every human being. You have your male aspect and your female aspect. We may call you a woman, dominantly female. We may call you a man, dominantly male. But you carry within yourself both male and female principles. You are both positive and negative inside of yourself, over and over again. And you have the tabernacle inside of yourself. You have the high priest and the priesthood within yourself. You have the 12 segments of mankind in your own body as a single individual person. It's all there. It's all in you, and it's all in the whole. But you, segregated from the whole, cannot have any meaning in relationship to the expression of these things. If you are a server, you need to know these things. If you're going to serve someone, to really help that person come to understand the reality of being, you must recognize that you are beginning to work with an individual where there are the 12 segments of humanity, the 12 tribes. You begin to work with the individual where there's an outer court. There must be something of a holy place. If you can't find something of a holy place, you can't do anything. You might as well quit. There must be a touch, a spot, a point where you can find a holy place in that individual. If you can't find the holy place in the individual, you'll never find the Holy of Holies. You'll never find the Ark of the Covenant. You'll never be able to save that person from himself. That person who is using his body and mind and heart to produce ill things, to destroy himself and others, must be changed from that pattern of action. And if you're going to change him, there must be the beginning in the realization of the reality of the holy place. And the holy place, once it is made manifest, what did I say a while ago? The only entrance into the Holy of Holies is through the holy place. You hope to find the Holy of Holies? You must let the holy place take form in you. You must be true to the holy place within yourself and function correctly in relationship to it in body and mind and heart before you can hope to pass through the holy place to the Holy of Holies in the outworking of your own experience, your own individual illumination, your own awareness of relationship with God or deity. And so, some there are who say, well, I want to function in relationship to the body, physical things out here. I'm perfectly willing to learn things, gain knowledge, and I would like very much to visit the Holy of Holies, but I am not going to stay steady enough, I'm not going to be true enough, I'm not going to be honest enough, I'm not going to be centered in God enough to allow the development of a holy place within myself. But please take me to the Holy of Holies. I'd like to visit there at least once. I'd like to know what it is to see the Ark of the Covenant, to rest before it, to commune with the one who dwells. I would like that very much, but I don't have time or inclination or steadiness or all the other things necessary to the development of a holy place. Without a holy place, you will never see the Holy of Holies. Never. The holy place must take form in you and be a reality in you before you can pass through the veil. What is the veil in the temple? Solomon's temple or the tabernacle, they were both made on the same basic design, same principles revealed. It said that the veil of the temple was rent in twain. Yes, the veil of the temple. Until our Master came and revealed deity, for a long time, no one had entered in any true sense. I'm not talking about Solomon's temple. No one had entered that which was symbolized by the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle or the temple. They had not passed through the veil. But how many have done it since? Precious few. They haven't been willing to have a holy place so that they would have an avenue of approach to the Holy of Holies. And you will never find the passage into the Holy of Holies unless you have a holy place through which you can move to find and know the Holy of Holies. You must be a whole tabernacle, a whole temple, with a holy priesthood and a high priest, individually. It's you. Male or female makes no difference. And it's not a question of whether you're married or not, whether you have a mate or not. It's a matter of whether you are willing to let the holy place become a reality within you so that you can have an avenue of approach, a way that leads to the veil that is rent asunder, that you may pass through that veil in your appointed season. I do not mean to die now. I'm not talking about dying. I'm talking about living. But you can pass through that veil into the Holy of Holies right here on earth and see and know the Ark of the Covenant. I told you last evening, the Ark of the Covenant is right here. But try to find it without a holy place. Man has been trying to do it for a good many centuries. No one has succeeded. There's only one way, God's way. Only one way. And our Master revealed it on earth. Until we begin to recognize the magic of being, the magic of living, which He offered to us, till we're ready to accept and follow in the way, the truth, and the life, and yield to the Shekinah pattern of being, we'll never know. The Shekinah pattern of being must begin to work through you while you're still in the outer court. If you see the cloud of glory, does that mean you're in the holy place? Not at all. It doesn't even necessarily mean that you're in the outer court. The glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle and shone round about. You can see the glory without getting that far. But you have to pass through the outer court to get to the holy place. No other way in. Must be through the outer court. And then there must be a holy place functioning correctly before you can reach the Holy of Holies and come at last to see the evidence of the presence of the one who dwells above the mercy seat between the cherubim. For you know the wonder and the beauty and the reality of the Ark of the Covenant. The Master talked a good deal about the Ark of the Covenant. He talked about agreement on earth as touching these things. What things? The things of heaven. Not the things of human imagination. The things of heaven on earth. If 2 or 3 of you shall agree on earth as touching these things, it shall be done of my Father which is in heaven. Agreement, covenant, same thing. A covenant is an agreement. An agreement is a covenant. The ark of the agreement the Ark of the Covenant, the center of the covenant, the center of the agreement, the place of agreement, the place of meeting, the place where heaven and earth are one. That is in the holy place, or the Holy of Holies. But you must reach it through